It was a quiet night above the shining city of Novatera. The city floated in orbit, a grand ring of glass and steel glowing softly against the stars. In one small room, Captain Aaron Cole sat at his desk. His eyes were tired as he scrolled through long lines of code on a glowing screen. He was a man used to silence, used to finishing his work when most others were asleep. The hum of the station's systems was the only sound around him, calm and even. Aaron was 32 and had seen many strange things while serving across the colonies. Now his duty was simple, peaceful, even working as an officer for communication projects between distant human settlements. It was calm work compared to his years in the fleet. Still, some nights he felt lonely. He often thought of how small one person could feel among the stars. He stood up, stretched, and poured himself a cup of water from the dispenser. Everything was in its place. His jacket hung on the back of the chair. His tools sat neatly lined beside his monitor. He liked order. Order kept the silence from feeling too large. He was about to shut down the console when he heard a soft sound, a hiss, followed by the faint click of an opening door. Aaron froze. The door from the corridor slid open, and for a moment, he thought it was an error in the system. But then someone stepped inside. A young woman in a long silver robe stood in the light of the doorway. She looked confused, her eyes wide as if realizing that this was not the room she meant to enter. "I am sorry," she said quickly, her voice low but firm. "I think I made a mistake." Aaron blinked. The woman before him did not look like any ordinary traveler. The robe she wore shimmered like woven light, and the small crest on her shoulder showed she belonged to someone important. More than that, her right leg was supported by a thin mechanical brace that reached from her thigh to her ankle, shining like polished chrome under the room's pale light. "That's quite all right," Aaron said carefully. "You're in Habitat Sector 12. Guest rooms are one hall down." She looked around as if the room itself made her nervous. "I was told this was my chamber," she said. Her tone carried both dignity and doubt. Aaron noticed the badge she wore. He had seen that symbol before House Varel, the ruling family of the Central Colonies. His heart skipped. That meant she was Princess Elena, heir to the Dominion. He had seen her image in news reports many times, but never expected to meet her, least of all like this, in his small, quiet room. Realizing her confusion, he straightened. "Your Highness," he said awkwardly, though he was uncertain if he should even speak that title aloud. Someone must have entered the wrong code when assigning quarters. Elena sighed and looked at him with a mix of weariness and quiet humor. "It would not be the first time a system error has caused trouble," she said softly. "Please forgive the intrusion." She turned as if to leave, but her legs stiffened, and she lost her balance for a moment. Aaron stepped forward quickly and caught her arm before she fell. "Careful," he said. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then she looked at him and gave a small, polite smile. "Thank you," she said. Aaron helped her steady herself and stepped back at once, trying not to stare. He noticed that she held her back proudly, even though her steps were slow and uneven. There was strength in her movements, not weakness. "I can ask someone to guide you to your chamber," Aaron offered. "No," she replied gently. "It is late. The guards are far from here." Her gaze drifted to the stars through the large window beside the control desk. "May I wait here for a moment until my escort arrives?" Aaron nodded, though he wasn't sure what the correct form of address should be. "Of course." She walked slowly to the window and stood there in silence. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the air system and the soft whisper of distant machinery. Aaron, unsure of what else to do, returned to his desk. "It's beautiful," she said finally. Still watching the glow of the planet below them, he looked up. "It is," he said. "I used to think I'd get tired of the view, but somehow it stays new." Elena smiled faintly. "I haven't had a moment like this in years," she said. "My life has always been a schedule. Rules and rooms full of people telling me what to do. I never thought a mistake could lead me somewhere peaceful." Aaron was not sure what to say. Her tone wasn't bitter, just honest. "Sometimes mistakes bring us where we should be," he answered quietly. She looked at him again, this time more closely, as if she was seeing not an officer, but a fellow traveler in this vast, careful world. There was kindness in her eyes, and something curious trust, perhaps. When the door finally opened again and her guards arrived, Alina turned once more toward Aaron. "Thank you, Captain," she said, "for not treating my error as one." He gave a small smile. "Any time, Your Highness. Mistakes happen to everyone." She nodded and left with her guards, the faint sound of her mechanical step fading down the corridor. When the door closed, Aaron found himself staring at the empty space she had stood in. The room suddenly felt even quieter. He didn't yet know that her mistake entering his room would change both their worlds forever. Several days passed after the strange night when Princess Elena had stepped into Aaron's room by mistake. Life aboard the orbital city of Novaterra went on with the same quiet rhythm, but something inside Aaron had changed. He found himself thinking about that moment again and again, the way she spoke, calm but strong, the spark in her eyes when she spoke of peace and freedom. It seemed impossible that a royal princess would remember someone like him, an ordinary officer surrounded by lights, wires, and reports. Yet a part of him hoped she did. One morning, while Aaron walked through the communication sector to deliver his work logs, a message blinked on his wrist screen. It was short and official, calling him to the diplomatic garden level. The sender was listed as Office of the Air. For a moment, he thought there must be a mistake again, like before. But curiosity won over reason. He changed direction and took the lift up through the glass corridors to the upper decks. The diplomatic garden was one of the most beautiful parts of Novaterra. It was a long hall filled with green trees and flowers, grown in artificial soil under a dome of clear light. Here, the air smelled of real earth and leaves instead of metal. Aaron stepped inside and saw Princess Elena sitting by a small waterfall that trickled across bright stones. She was alone, dressed in a simple gown, without her usual guard standing near. When she turned her head and saw him, her face lit up with a gentle smile. "Captain Cole," she said warmly, "I am glad you came." He gave a small bow, uncertain of what to say. "I was not sure if this message was truly meant for me, Your Highness." "It was," she said. "Please, just call me Elena while we speak here. No titles. It feels lighter that way." Aaron hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Elena." She looked pleased. They began walking slowly along the path beside the small, glittering stream. Her step was careful but steady, her brace clicking softly with each movement. Aaron noticed she carried herself with grace, even when her motion seemed difficult. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "The other night you treated me like a person, not like a fragile thing. That is rare where I come from." "I only did what anyone would do," Aaron replied. She looked at him as though she could see straight through that polite answer. "Not everyone would help without judgment," she said. "Most people look at me and see the leg first. You looked at me and only saw someone lost in the wrong room." Aaron smiled a little. "Suppose I did." They sat on a bench near the garden wall, where vines climbed up around the frame and cast moving shadows in the soft light. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply listened to the faint hum of the station and the sound of the water running. Elena finally broke the silence. "You used to serve in the fleet, yes?" "Yes, I did," Aaron said. "Before I was reassigned here. Too many conflicts in too many places. I wanted something quiet for a change. Peace," she said softly. "That is what I want too." Aaron looked at her with curiosity. "From what I've read, your council is already leading talks for peace across the colonies." Elena laughed lightly, though it was a tired laugh. "Peace on paper is not the same as peace in hearts or homes. My council knows numbers, not people. They forget that real peace needs understanding, not orders." Her words surprised him. She spoke not like a royal official, but like someone hungry for honesty. They kept talking for what felt like hours about their lives before Novaterra. About art, history, food, and childhood memories. Aaron told her about his small hometown on the coast of Old America, where the sea still touched the cliffs. She told him how she spent her early years inside marble walls, learning to walk again after an accident that had almost taken her life. Each story seemed to build a bridge between their worlds. At some point, the lights of the dome shifted to a soft sunset glow, marking the evening cycle. Elena's attendants appeared at the far end of the walkway, but she did not stand yet. Instead, she turned toward Aaron and said quietly, "You remind me what being human feels like. Most people around me speak in formality, but you listen." He felt a warmth rise inside him, unsure how to answer. I suppose that's because I like hearing things that are real, he said. She smiled again, and it was a different kind of smile, less formal, more alive. Then I hope we can talk again soon, she said, not as princess and officer, but as two people who happen to share the same sky. I'd like that, Aaron said. When she finally left the garden with her attendants, Aaron stayed behind. The sound of the waterfall and the scent of flowers filled the air, but the space felt strangely empty now. He looked up through the glass dome at the enormous planet turning silently far below, and wondered why his heart felt lighter than it had in years. He did not yet realize that others had seen them talking. In the quiet corners of the royal court, whispers were already beginning to spread. Some would call it friendship. Others would call it danger. But for that one evening, Aaron thought only of her smile and the echo of her words, simple, honest, and human. The friendship between Aaron and Alina slowly grew in the weeks that followed. It started with short meetings in the garden, where they would talk quietly under the glassy sky of the orbital city. She would come after finishing her lessons in political meetings. He would come after long hours repairing and managing the communication systems. Their conversations were never rushed. They spoke of ordinary things, music, stories of Earth, simple meals they missed. For the first time in her life, Alina was free to speak without being judged by her title. For Aaron, those quiet hours were the most peaceful moments he had known since leaving Earth. But peace rarely lasts in a place ruled by power and politics. The royal council soon noticed how often the princess disappeared from official gatherings. Some officers whispered about a certain communication officer who had caught the princess's attention. Rumors moved faster than truth. Within days, the queen herself became aware of it. Elena's mother was not cruel, but she understood control better than compassion. Her throne was held by strength, and every smile she gave in public was measured and planned. When her advisors told her about the meetings between her daughter and a low-ranking officer, she said nothing at first. Then she simply ordered, "Find out everything about this man." One evening, Aaron received a message on his console. It was from Clara, one of Elena's friends, who also served as her handmaiden. The message was short, the court knows. He was careful. He stared at the words for a long time. His first thought was worried for Alina. He didn't care what they said about him. But he knew the queen would protect her power fiercely. With a heavy heart, he decided to avoid the garden for a few days, hoping the talk would fade. Alina, however, refused to hide. When she learned what had happened, she sent for Aaron, not caring who saw. He found her waiting in a quiet corridor near the viewing bay, where stars floated beyond the glass. "They are trying to keep me away from you," she said, as soon as he arrived. "But I will not pretend that I do not know you." Aaron shook his head slightly. "Princess, it might be safer if... Do not call me that right now," she said softly but firmly. "When I'm alone, I am just Alina. If we let them cage every friendship, then what kind of life is that?" She looked troubled. Her usual calm seemed shaken, though she tried to keep her back straight. "They say you have changed the way I think. They call you dangerous. Can you believe that? A man who repairs circuits and makes tea when he is tired, called dangerous." Aaron gave a quiet laugh. "That might be the first time anyone said that about me." Her lips curved into a brief smile, but it disappeared quickly. "My mother plans to meet with you," she said. "She will test your loyalty, and she will look for fear. Promise me you will not let her see it." "I'm not sure I can promise that," Aaron admitted honestly. "But I can promise I won't lie to her." Alina sighed. "Then do not lie. But do not let them decide who you are." When she left that night, Aaron felt a sense of dread he could not shake. He spent the next day called into questioning by her mother's officers. They searched his records, his years of service, his family history. Every answer he gave was met with another sharp question. Yet when the queen herself finally allowed an audience, the room fell silent. She was tall, elegant, her presence heavy and cold. "So you are the man my daughter speaks with," she said, her eyes never leaving his face. "Yes, your majesty," Aaron replied. "I hear you served well in the fleet, but loyalty must never mix with personal desire. You understand this?" "I do," he said, steady though the weight of her stare was like iron. "You will stop seeing her," the queen said clearly.
"Oh."
"She has duties far greater than friendship." Something inside Aaron wanted to agree, to end the pain of standing before such power. But he could not lie, not now. "I respect her duties," he said. "But she also deserves honesty, and I will not pretend we are strangers." The Queen's eyes grew colder. "You forget your place, officer. Do you imagine yourself her equal?" "No," Aaron said simply. "But I do imagine myself her friend. That is all." She said nothing after that. Her guards dismissed him. As the doors closed behind him, Aaron felt both relief and fear. He had spoken the truth, but truth often came with a price. Later that night, Clara found him again. "The council will move you soon," she whispered. "They claim it is for security, but it is really punishment." Aaron looked out through the window at the stars. They shone quietly, distant and unaware of human politics. He thought of Elena, her courage, her laughter, her leg brace shining in starlight, and he knew what had begun that night in his room was no simple mistake anymore. It was the start of something neither of them could easily stop. In her royal chambers, Elena sat beside her window too, gazing out at the same stars. She could almost feel his thoughts reaching toward hers across the great halls that divided them. No walls, no orders, no titles could change that connection. A storm was coming. She knew it. But she was no longer afraid. She had found her voice, and someone who listened. The tension on Novaterra grew like a shadow that would not fade. Everyone on the station had heard the whispers. Some said the princess had lost her mind for speaking so openly with an ordinary officer. Others said Aaron had used clever words to gain her trust. None of them understood that what connected them was simple and quiet, a friendship built in truth, not in power. The Queen finally made her decision. She called a meeting of the High Council in the Grand Hall of the Palace Deck. Members from all parts of the Dominion arrived in elegant robes and voices full of pride. It was to be a formal hearing, though it felt more like a trial. They would decide what to do with her daughter, the heir of the throne, who had refused to follow the plans arranged for her since birth. Elena stood beside the long window outside the hall, watching the planet turn far below. Her heart beat hard, but her eyes were calm. She wore a flowing white gown with silver threads, and her leg brace gleamed faintly. She had chosen not to hide it. The brace was part of her, just as her strength and her pain were part of her story. Inside the hall, her mother waited, along with the council and Aaron, who had been ordered to attend. When the guards opened the doors, the crowd fell silent. Elena walked forward slowly, but proudly. Each step of her metal brace made a clear sound against the polished floor. She reached the center of the circle where her mother sat on the high seat. The room was grand, filled with banners and crystal lights, but all eyes were on her. Aaron stood off to the side, watching with quiet worry. The Queen spoke first. "You have broken tradition," she said. "You have shamed the court and confused the people. Do you deny it?" Elena lifted her chin. "I do not deny my actions, mother, but I deny that I have shamed anyone. I have spoken with a man who values honesty and kindness. If that is shameful, then I do not understand what honor truly means." Murmurs spread across the room. The council whispered among themselves. The Queen's eyes flashed in warning, but Elena did not look away. "Your duty is to unite our world," the Queen said. "Your marriage has been promised to another house. Without it, the peace we built could crumble. Peace built on chains is not peace," Elena said softly. "It is silence. Silence is nothing but fear, wearing a mask of order." The hall grew even quieter. The council members looked uneasy. Aaron stood perfectly still, but his hands were tense at his sides. He knew every word she spoke was dangerous, yet every word carried truth. The Queen rose from her seat. "Do you understand what you are risking, child? You think you defy me for love? Do you even know what love demands?" Elena nodded. "Love demands choice. It cannot exist without freedom. And freedom is the only thing worth leading for." The Queen's voice grew cold. "And this officer, this man you defend, do you believe he is worthy of you?" Elena turned her head toward Aaron. For a long moment she simply looked at him, and he looked back. Then she said clearly, "He is not perfect, but neither am I. He sees me as I am, not as what I am meant to be. That makes him worthy." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Queen's face went pale with shock, but before she could speak, Aaron took a step forward. His voice was calm, but steady. "Your Majesty, I mean no disrespect. I have no title, No claim to anything but my own word, but I will not deny my feelings. I care for your daughter. I would give my life to protect her honesty, because it is greater than any crown." The council burst into noise, some arguing, some shouting for guards, others trying to restore order. The queen raised her hand, and silence fell once more. Her eyes moved from her daughter to the man before her. "Then say the words," she said slowly. "If you truly mean to bind your life to hers, if you truly think yourself her equal, say it." Aaron's heart pounded hard. The hall seemed to fade until he could only see Alina. Her shoulders straight, eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. He took a breath and said, "I do." The words were simple, but they filled the chamber like a storm. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then a wave of voices rose, half in protest, half in disbelief. Alina stood motionless, then walked to him and took his hand, her brace clicking softly on the marble floor. "You have heard him, mother," she said, "and you will hear me. I choose not power or arrangement, but truth. I have chosen who I will walk beside, even if the path ahead is full of struggle." The queen looked at the two of them for a long time. For the first time, her expression showed something that looked like sorrow. "You are your father's daughter," she said at last, "stubborn, foolish, and brave." She turned to the council. "Let it be recorded. She has made her choice." As the court broke into chaos once more, Alina stood beside Aaron, hands trembling but eyes bright. For the first time in her life, she felt completely free. Whatever came next, the choice had been hers, and that made every risk worth it. The news of the princess's choice spread across NetNarrator faster than light. People spoke of nothing else. Some praised Alina for her courage. Others said she had brought shame to the throne. Messages came from every colony and every court. Some supported her voice for freedom, while others demanded punishment. For days, order nearly broke apart as every part of the Dominion argued about love, class, and duty. Inside the royal palace deck, silence sat heavy. The queen had locked herself away for a time, leaving her advisors to deal with the noise outside. Alina waited, heart steady, knowing she had stepped beyond the reach of safety. She had expected anger, maybe even exile. But deep inside her, she felt peace. She had lived her life behind masks, and now, for the first time, she could breathe without pretending. Aaron was kept away from her for a short while. The guards would not let him near the royal decks. They told him he would be sent back to Earth soon, where he could disappear quietly. Yet he waited each day, working calmly and refusing to argue. He had said the words before the court, and he meant them. If they sent him away, he would still carry his truth with him. Then, one afternoon, Clara arrived at his door. Her voice was hushed, her eyes bright with excitement. "The queen wants to see you," she said. Aaron followed her through the long corridors until they reached a wide room lined with tall windows. The queen stood facing away from him, looking out at the curve of the planet below. She did not turn as he entered. "Captain Cole," she said, her tone steady.
"Oh."
"Do you understand what you have done?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Aaron said quietly. "She has been my only child," the queen said, still looking outside. Her father died believing she would rule with calm hands and loyal advisors. Now she stands ready to throw away all that was built? And for what? For a man who fixes screens and speaks of peace? Aaron said, "Perhaps that is why she will rule better than anyone before her. Because she knows what peace truly means." The queen turned finally and looked him in the eyes. He expected anger, but saw something else, their weariness, even sadness. "Do you love her?" she asked. "Yes," Aaron said. The queen sighed softly. "You speak with honesty. I have lived too long among those who twist words. I cannot hate you for that." She walked closer and handed him a small seal made of silver. "This will open the lower gate. Take her if you must. Leave this station before the council changes its mind. If you stay, they will try to destroy both of you to protect their pride." Aaron stared at her in shock. "You're letting her go?" The queen looked back toward the stars. "If I keep her here, I will become the monster she already believes me to be. Go, before I change my decision." That night, Alina stood at the balcony of her room, the air filled with the hum of distant engines. When the door opened, and she saw Aaron walk in, she could hardly believe it. He handed her the silver seal. "Your mother gave us a way out," he said. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "And we will take it," she whispered. They left before dawn. The palace corridors were dark and quiet. Only Clara watched them go, her hand pressed to her heart, wishing them safety. Down in the lower docks, a small ship weighed, a silent cruiser hidden among cargo vessels. They stepped inside, side by side, and the engines came alive with a soft glow. As the ship slipped free of Novaterra's great ring, Elena looked back one last time. Light from the city shined behind her like a crown. "I was born there," she said softly, "but I do not belong to it anymore." "You belong to yourself," Aaron said, setting the course toward the open stars. She turned to him and smiled through her tears. "And to you," she said. He reached for her hand, and they watched as Novaterra faded into the distance. Ahead lay the endless dark, full of promise and danger. But neither of them felt fear. They traveled in silence for a while until the first rays of sunlight from the nearby star touched the ship windows. The gold light painted Elena's face, and for the first time Aaron saw her without the weight of duty. She was not a princess or a leader, only a woman starting her life anew. Far behind them, the queen stood alone by her window. She watched their ship disappear and whispered words no council would ever hear. "Be safe, my daughter. Rule your own story." In time, their flight became legend. Songs were written about the princess with the silver brace and the man who said "I do" before the might of a throne. They never returned to the station, but stories of them spread across the colonies as a tale of courage, choice, and love, stronger than any crown. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the universe, the small ship moved on. Two figures together in a wide sea of stars, bound not by command but by the promise they had made to live as free and honest hearts, side by side until the last sunrise they would ever see.